I'm going to go back to September of 1977, and a conversation I had with my father, and we'll expand from there a little bit. We were familiar with the story of Seminary Student 1025. This has been fictionalized and reprinted by Tan as a book called AA 1025. However, the story that I am familiar with, that we were familiar with at the time, circulated in the early 1970s by Yves Dupont, the author of Catholic Prophecy. It is a true story. This man was number 1025 of the communists infiltrating the Catholic Church. And that's the key to this story. Now we know the infiltration comes from other places. At that time we'd heard, but we didn't have documentation, that there were infiltration from the Masons, for instance. That's, of course, now we know from the Alta Vendita. Pius X was concerned about. We didn't know that at the time. But we had sufficient information. It seemed reasonable, especially when you read the story of Seminary Student 1025. Dad and I had a conversation. He says, okay, they went to all this trouble to infiltrate the Catholic Church and bring about Vatican II. They should reasonably know there would be a resistance to Vatican II. And if Econe is of God, because I was getting ready to go to Econe, if Econe is of God, they will have infiltrators there to destroy it as well. And that was the gist of the conversation. He said, keep your eyes open. They are there. And stop and think about it. At the time, 1977, we thought the Society of St. Pius X was Catholic, and therefore the devil wishing to destroy the church. He's not going to stop with all but, 100,000, or all but 10,000, or all but 10. If the Catholic Church was reduced to a single person, the devil's going after him. And the devil used infiltration to bring about Vatican II. That's the story of Seminary Student 1025. That's the history of the Alta Vendita, a permanent instruction of the Alta Vendita, which Pope Pius IX ordered published. I'm sure there were other efforts from the Rosicrucians, other secret societies, some of which are not documented. It doesn't really matter. The damage has been done. The infiltration was completed, which caused Vatican II. And it extends on elsewhere. I would say there are dedicated agents of the devil amongst the traditionalists. I'm not going to name names because I don't have certainty on any of the current traditionalists that they are one. They might not be. But we should keep our eyes open. Because what would an infiltrator try to do? He would try to stop anything coming back to the way the Catholic Church should be. And so, let us be on the watch for this. And I'm going to go back to a story from about 6 months before, in January or February 1976. We have to do a little history of the Society of St. Pius X in the United States. A history which would cause Archbishop Lefebvre in 1979 tell my parents at the first pilgrimage in St. Mary's, when I had a meeting over my problems, he ended the long discussion. He had been in French. We had a translator. He speaks English, or spoke English, he of course being dead now. Doesn't speak anything. But in any case, he could speak English, but he preferred to have a translator when he was discussing things. He had stopped giving sermons in English at that time. And I can't blame him. I mean, old man, knows the language, but you don't want to trip up in a third language or fourth language, which you're not very familiar with, as opposed to Italian, which he spoke, whatever. So let's move forward. At the end of this long discussion, he looks straight at us and says, "The United States is my cross." the Society of St. Pius X had a lot of problems in the 1970s and on into the 1980s. Some of this later problems are documented online. This particular story I've not ever seen documented. Father Anthony Ward was ordained by Archbishop Lefebvre, came to Detroit, and he set up St. Joseph House of Studies, the seminary there. He was running the seminary. I visited there in the summer of '76, applying to seek admission. Father Ward put me off, saying I need more worldly experience. I don't recall many of the saints hearing those words, but that's what he said. And so I came back, went to work, whatever. There was another man from Oklahoma City who was already in the seminary. He'd entered, I would say at the end of '75. Older man, older than me. I would say he was early to mid-20s. And he was one of three that Archbishop Lefebvre tonsured around the same time I was confirmed in May of '76. He was home for Christmas vacation, the end of '76. We got together and visited some and did some things together, and then next thing you know, boom, he's leaving early to head back. We don't hear anything for a few days. Next thing you know, we hear Father Ward had taken off with 11 or 12 seminarians, all but 3 of the seminarians, and left Armada. He moved out to a place in Irish Hills, Michigan, and the local boys encouraged him he should get out of town. He ended up in Colorado Springs, where he is to this day. And thus, he took off with a bunch of the seminarians. No promise of bishop, no nothing. I don't understand why they went with him. Of course, I'd met probably most of the seminarians in the summer. All pretty nice guys. 3 seminarians did stay with the society at that time. Those 3 left with the Society of St. Pius V and the what I call the Dissident Dozen. It started out, they were originally called the 9 because 9 priests left in March of '83. 3 more stayed in. But let us return to Father Ward's story. My mom was having a discussion with Father Boldick. After all this, we had all the basic information in. My mom looked at Father Boldick and says, I wonder if Father Ward was one of those anti-apostles in the story of A 1025. Father Boldick looked at her and said, put that thought out of your mind. An interesting and strange response. Leastwise, she thought so at the time. We joke about it later, but it is a rather serious matter. Why would he say, put that thought out of your mind? Was he possibly an anti-apostle? I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying, is it a possibility? Why would he want to distract us from this? Well, this didn't stop my dad from warning me that they're going to be there 6 months later. And it's something we need to stop and think about. If the traditionalist movement is of God, the enemy is going to infiltrate to neutralize it, one way or another. If you don't see an effort of the devil against it, if it is looking like it's being successful, if it's holding together and growing without the devil impeding it, is it possibly influenced by the devil? It is something to think about. The devil wants the destruction of the Catholic Church, and he will not rest until there are no Catholics left on earth. We know from Jesus Christ's promise this will not happen. I will be with you all days, even unto the consummation of the world. He did not promise that we'd have millions of people all days to the consummation of the world. The church started with 130 or so people, the 120 disciples and the 12 apostles on Pentecost Sunday, and then it began to grow. It has been reduced. We know the Arian heresy. The devil is out to destroy it utterly. He took a new tack I would say probably a century and a half to 2 centuries ago, possibly further back, of infiltration. It finally got to the point St. Pius X warned about. We know Pope Pius IX ordered the permanent instruction of the Ultima Vendita published because it discussed the infiltration of the Catholic Church. We see the results of that infiltration. It's called Vatican II, which was the end, not the beginning of the problem. The problem has been going on for a century at least. We will probably never know this side of the grave how long this infiltration has been going on, or how deep it is. We won't know who the true infiltrators were until we are in heaven and God judges them. We need to be wary. We need to be careful. We need to pray. We need to be zealous Catholics. Nothing but a zealous Catholic is going to obtain heaven, my friends. We need to be on our guard. We need to be vigilant. We're not here to go out there and say, he's an infiltrator, he's an infiltrator, he's an infiltrator. No. We are here to learn the Catholic faith so that we cannot be deceived by an infiltrator, or someone who also is deceived for some reason. We need truth. God bless you. And I plan on continuing some more autobiographical videos in the future.